Sure. So I guess a supervision is almost like a very small teaching group where you, well, for computer science at least, do a problem sheet beforehand, which is normally related on about 4 hours of lecture material. And then you go into that supervision having previously submitted your answers to that supervisor. And then most likely you and a partner, as supervision is normally between like 1 and 1 and 1 in 3.
Yeah.
Then like discuss any problems you had issues with, but also just extensions of the course and trying to get you to think laterally.
Hello everyone, welcome to Cambridge from the Inside. We're here with a new guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Will, and I'm a second year computer science student here at Trinity Hall.
Nice. And we're here today to talk about the computer science degree, what it's like studying comp ski at Cambridge. For anyone who doesn't know, what is computer science?
I guess it's quite like a wide term. Here at Cambridge, it's more almost theoretical and studying like how you can almost make a computer from the ground up, and then also all the theory behind that, and then the logic side of it and more the algorithm side of it. So I guess a lot more theory based and a lot less programming than perhaps other universities would be.
Yeah. So, can you expand in terms of, so for anyone who doesn't know it, also me that doesn't know anything about computer science, is it a degree where you're learning to code, you're learning how to make computers physically? Is it aligned into software engineering? What does it, or is it none of those things?
Sure. So I guess I wouldn't say it's very learning to code. It more teaches you the theory behind like programming in general. So you'd be able to apply that quite easily to just generic program, like of any language, but they don't really like give you a specific language that you learn in. And then, yeah, I guess it's a lot more abstract in that sense, where they don't really teach you how to program as much. And that's more things you do personally.
Okay, interesting. Can you do you have like an example of something where they teach you the theory, but it kind of links to different like programming languages?
I guess we just have like an object-oriented programming course, which is, although it has a few examples in a programming language of Java, a lot of it is just taught in a very like theoretical basis in terms of, for any object-oriented programming language, you could still apply all of the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of, the argument is that it makes it a lot easier to know the theory behind everything instead of learning one specific thing, because it makes you a lot more versatile as a student.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is that common with all computer science degrees across the country, or is the Cambridge course different in any way to other courses?
I think the Cambridge one's probably one of the most theoretical ones in the country. A lot more courses have like a lot more programming inside of it, and then a large proportion of it is just programming and almost leading you towards software engineering. Whereas I guess the Cambridge degree is a lot more balanced in terms of it's teaching you the theory as well as some parts of programming. And I guess it's giving you more of like a variety so that you can choose what to specialize in inside of that.
And you still could specialize into software engineering after computer science?
After a degree here, you could really go into anything in like the technology sphere quite easily. But I think, they don't really specialize inside the course itself. That's more when you go out looking for jobs. You could then specialize to your own interests.
Because you've like learned the skills.
Yeah, because the skills have been learned. And then I guess it's like a lot easier to apply because you've just got a very diverse like skill set, and then you can apply that wherever you want to inside of what interests you.
Nice. This might sound like a dumb question, but I guess in the very term software engineering, there's engineering, and some people might think, to become a software engineer, you should do an engineering course. Is that the case, or could it be accessed through either engineering or computer science?
I guess software engineering now is like quite a vague term, and it's almost like you could access it with any sort of degree, not even a STEM one necessarily, because it's more, well, the whole like premise is that you just write code and you find problems that you want to solve. So I guess that's the thinking probably more aligns with like you said, an engineering or computer science degree. But then it's very common for people who've done maths and other STEM degrees or even non-STEM degrees who just have a passion in it to still pursue it.
Yeah.
Because it's not really one of those that you need a degree for necessarily, but where you can also like learn the skills personally.
Yeah. So this might be another dumb question, but I'm sure a lot of people be thinking the same thing as well. What actually is a software engineer?
I guess again, it's quite hard to define because it's very vague in and of itself, but a lot of it is just essentially writing code and like writing software essentially. And then you've got the maintenance side of software. So you might not actually be deploying something new, but instead just making sure something keeps on running. And I guess a lot of it is just around code, either creating it or maintaining it. And then I guess maybe optimizing it. So I guess it's quite like a loaded term at the moment because you can kind of apply it to anything inside of that programming sphere.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So back to the computer science course at Cambridge. If anyone who doesn't know what is the course like and the course structure, like, do you have fixed modules or is there any flexibility in what modules you choose, etc.?
Sure. So in first year, there's no flexibility at all. So you have about 15 modules, and then you have a maths paper, which you learn with the natural science students. And then for each of those modules, you have a choice of 2 questions in the exam and you have to do one of them. And then coming into second year, you still have to learn all the modules, but then you're able to not pick those questions in the exam. But I guess you still probably have to be able to answer confidently about 3/4 of the modules to like actually access enough questions in each exam. And then going into third year, there's 13 topics and then you only pick 5 in the exam. So that's where the real flexibility, I guess, comes in, as well as you have 2 examinated modules, like in the end of Michaelmas, which is the first term, and end of Lent, which is the second term. So I guess, before third year, there's not necessarily too much flexibility, but then going into third year, you get quite a bit more.
Nice. And is there an opportunity to do a 4th year in computer science?
Yeah, so there's an integrated master's for computer science, which I think kind of just leads on from the third year in some senses. I think you have about the same amount of flexibility, but you need to get a first in your third year to then progress to the integrated master's if you want to. And then I guess also only the third year counts just in the whole degree, which means that, so you need a first just generally to then progress into the master's.
Yeah, I imagine that would be generally, and there might be some exceptions to that in terms of progressing to the 4th year, and it might differ by college. So if anyone like myself who just doesn't know what kind of modules, what the content is like for computer science, so what kind of things will you be learning, and are there any kind of similarities to like any A levels, or is it just completely new stuff?
Sure. So I guess quite a lot of it, as I mentioned, was like theory based. So you have things like learning about how an operating system works, and then networking behind that, databases, and that sort of aspect of it. But then I guess you also go a lot more theory based. So you do a lot of like logic and proof, and then computation theory. So a lot of things about essentially proving systems or proving like logical statements to be true. And then I guess that applies into almost the third part, which is almost algorithms and then like programs inside of that. And then inside of there's, I guess, the only place that really programming happens. But then you have like a lot of theory that like sets up all of that.
No, it's like, which core you were saying, like logic and proof, that sounds like similar terms that you use in philosophy. Is there like an overlap between computer science and philosophy or any other courses?
I guess, there's quite a bit of overlap in terms of the logic and proof side with philosophy, but I think ours goes into a more like mathematical depth, whereas I think philosophy goes into yeah, I guess both of them apply more towards their like relevant subject, and they keep it topical towards that. But there definitely are like similarities in the baseline, what's being taught. And then also, I think to answer your previous question, I guess A levels that are similar, computer science A level, some of it is quite a bit similar. There's like a theory paper in the computer science A level. So I'd say there's some overlap there.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say there's too much overlap. Like it's quite a small,
Yeah.
like, yeah, connection.
So I think, let's say someone's doing physics, maths, and further maths for A level. It's like quite a common combination, or like maths, further maths, and a third subject. And how does that student in sixth form doing those A levels think of, oh, I might want to do computer science? Like I'm just trying to work out what the connection is.
I guess I can't really speak too generically, but for me personally, I'd always really enjoyed maths, and that would always be my favorite subject. But I guess the parts of maths I liked were almost more applied to sort of maths challenge, those sort of abstract problems that you're solving. And then as you progress through maths, and certainly by degree level, it gets quite a bit more abstract and theoretical almost. And I didn't really like that almost disconnect, whereas computer science is still essentially solving problems and then hands-on. And then also, I guess just generally, I was quite just interested in computers after picking computer science GCSE and then subsequently A level. But yeah, I guess the main thing would be some sort of passion for, yeah, like more the programming and problem solving side. And I guess if you find you align more with that, I think then you have to make a decision between maths and computer science.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, when they think of maths, they might separate it between pure maths and applied maths. Like there's your pure maths exams and there's mechanics and statistics exams. What the maths you need to learn in computer science, is it pure or applied, or what kind of maths do you learn when you're doing a CompSci degree?
I guess in first year, a lot of it has obviously because it's taken from a natural science module, a lot of it is pure maths, but then some of it has quite a lot of relevant ties to physics. So that's like still quite pure in a sense. But then the modules that computer science themselves run for maths, I don't think are really too comparable to either. Because I guess at school, a lot of the maths you do is a lot more plugging in the numbers, and actually when you come here, it's a lot more just knowing the equations and then rearranging algebraically, I guess. But I think a lot more of it is almost discrete mathematics. So like a lot more, abstract in that sense. But yeah, I guess it would probably all come under pure. I don't think too much of it's applied in that sense.
Yeah. Can you expand like what discrete mathematics is? Is that something that A-level students would learn about in maths A-level or further maths A-level?
I don't think it's something you learn in either of those. I guess it's kind of discrete maths is starting from the very foundations and then building up everything from there. Yeah. And I guess, that's like, it's a very different way because you kind of have to reset all your essentially knowledge that you've had in the past and then work from just the basic like ideas and then work up from there to prove everything else. Yeah. And kind of learning those skills enables you to do the problem solving that you need to do in a CompSci degree. Yeah, I'd say it's definitely relevant. There's a lot of courses where discrete maths is a big foundation, and like without that knowledge, you really kind of fall behind almost in some of the other modules, or you have to spend extra time trying to understand that. Which so I think it ties into quite a lot of all the other theory courses we then have. Nice. And for like a CompSci student, what does like a typical week look like? How are CompSci students taught in the course? Sure. So you have about 10 to 12 hours of lectures a week. And then on top of that, you probably have about 3 supervisions a week. And then I guess additionally, you sometimes have some sort of programming exercises that you have to do. They're called ticks. And I had about 6 this year. And then in first and second year, you have a group project that you have to do, which has come in Lent term, so this term. And then I guess that's an additional commitment that you had to do as well.
Nice. So 12 hours of lectures a week, that sounds like quite a lot. Is that Monday to Friday, or are there Saturday lectures as well for Comski?
So in first year, there's Saturday lectures because, again, it joins onto the natural science course and they have Saturday maths lectures.
Yeah.
But then every year after that, it's just on the Monday to Friday. So I guess all the computer science run lectures are also just Monday to Friday. And yeah, they're normally spread out anywhere between 1 and 3 hours on a day. They try to often balance it so it's 2 a day, but then sometimes you just have modules ending early and other ones lasting longer.
And for anyone who doesn't know, can you explain what a supervision is and what a computer science supervision looks like?
Sure. So I guess a supervision is almost like a very small teaching group where you, well, for computer science at least, do a problem sheet beforehand, which is normally related on about 4 hours of lecture material. And then you go into that supervision having previously submitted your answers to that supervisor. And then most likely you and a partner, as supervisions normally between 1 and 1 and 1 and 3, then discuss any problems you had issues with, but also just extensions of the course and trying to get you think laterally.
So one academic and either one student or up to 3 students?
Yeah, so in computer science, fortunately I've only had, it's always been 1 to 2.
Yeah.
But then I know some other, depending on the college and also just how the numbers align, you could have anything between 1 to 1 and 1 to 3.
Right. And what kind of benefits do you think there are from 1 to 2 teaching compared to a class of 20 people and there's 1 teacher?
I guess one of the main benefits is just, well, in our supervision, almost half the time could be spent answering my questions.
Yeah.
And that's, you get a lot more personalized attention in terms of what you're struggling on. Even if no one else was in a class of 20, then it wouldn't really get much attention. Whereas in a supervision, they're kind of there to support your learning a lot more, to the extent that you can kind of flag any question you're not sure of and they'll be able to answer it then.
Yeah, so would I be right in thinking supervisions aren't like lectures? It's very conversational and you're able to ask them questions and have the space to do so because there aren't so many students.
Yeah, I think definitely a big part is because it's such a small group, there's no sort of barrier in that sense between the academics and the students, and it's a lot more conversational. And I guess that means, you don't feel as awkward almost about asking those sort of questions, and just even the most simple ones that you think, oh, I should know this, but I don't think there's really any hesitancy there because of the fact it's such a small group and they're ultimately there to help you learn.
And you were mentioning about the problem sets, problem sheets. Am I right in thinking, so you have a problem sheet, you complete it, and then do you hand it in before each supervision, and do you go through that problem sheet, the work that you've done during the supervision?
So for most supervisions, you hand it in about anywhere from 24 hours before to a week before. And then most of the time you discuss essentially all the answers in the supervision sheet and you get your answers back, and then you just see if both of you got it right, then they're not going to spend as long on it. But if both of you struggled or one of you struggled, then they're going to explain what was wrong with it. But then I guess a few of the supervisions, the sheets are they're just marked, but then they're sort of meant to be prompts for discussion. And then they're meant to be the starting point, but you don't really spend too long actually lingering on the answers and more just talking about the course and extensions of it. Because a lot with the end of year exam questions, they're not necessarily just fully contained inside the course, and they get you to do some extensions and further thinking. So I guess that's kind of what supervisions are trying to do. They're trying to simulate that lateral thinking to try and expand your knowledge on the topic.
Right. Now that you've been doing the course you're in your second year, halfway through, are there any topics or things that you've been learning about in computer science that you didn't think had anything to do with computer science beforehand, or has it all been kind of what you expected?
I guess a lot of it is kind of what I expected because I guess I kind of looked into the course beforehand, so it was hard to be like too surprised. But I didn't really expect it to almost be so theory and like founded, like based in maths. But I guess that's kind of yeah, just what it is. So I guess I should have probably like figured that out a bit more. But yeah, I guess that was like probably the only shock. I think a lot of it is fairly like every module they teach, I think, is kind of involved inside computer science quite a bit.
Nice. And how would you say like most Comsci students got into computer science? I mean, were most people kind of coding beforehand and then kind of stumbled across computer science and thought that's a degree that they would want to do, or are there like other avenues?
I think the most common one is definitely they've been coding before and then they found like computer science is what aligns with that.
Yeah.
But I think there's definitely some people who aren't really too interested in the programming side and just have always been interested in, I don't know, taking apart computers and understanding how they work and that sort of thing. And I guess, yeah, that's a very common other avenue of like the people who want to go into more academics or the actual study of computers in that sense. I think that's definitely quite common as well.
So if you're someone who likes kind of taking apart computers and seeing how they work, and yeah, is that something that you would be able to continue learning about in the computer science degree?
I think to some extent you'd learn a lot about the like components of the hardware, but you wouldn't really have necessarily too much hands-on experience because yeah, as I mentioned, it's not really the most hands-on course. I guess engineering would be more towards if if you really liked the making and taking apart of things, that'd probably be where I'd say you align more with. But I think computer science is quite good in like teaching you about those parts quite well, and you can understand the logic behind it all and essentially how to set up these sort of computer systems, and I guess logically how to take them apart, but not physically in that sense.
This is a bit of a tangent, but it sounds like the computer science course. It reminds me of the medicine course, and kind of like there's preclinical and clinical. In that preclinical is very theory based and knowledge based, but not very hands on. And then they kind of do the hands on stuff in the clinical side. Would that be like a right metaphor, like way of thinking of seeing the computer science course, and after the degree people apply in work or academia?
I guess for me personally, I definitely see it that way.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, anyone who's looking to pursue more the software writing and that's the more hands-on sort of jobs afterwards, I definitely say that is quite like a strong analogy. But I guess for the people who are quite interested in the theory, they yeah, it would always stay this theoretical.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, like you said, that's the people who study academia after medicine.
Yeah. And would I be right in thinking that if you kind of, let's say, did engineering and went into software engineering, or were interested in computer science but did a different degree, would it be hard to later down the line go into the theory side of computer science if you hadn't done a computer science undergrad?
I think going into the theory is definitely doable. There's like a lot of good resources out there, but I think it's kind of just, it's a lot to learn and it's not necessarily all the most relevant. Like the jobs I'd be looking for and people inside of software engineering would be looking for, you won't need all the skills. So I guess if you're trying to just learn it to just expand your knowledge, then it's definitely doable. But I also think it's also very doable to just learn what you need for the part inside of software engineering you want to do. And then I guess in your own time, if you want to expand that knowledge further, you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think it's like quite easily accessible, like sort of sphere to work inside of, even from very non-computer science degrees.
Yeah. And I imagine it's quite a small subset of people who haven't done a computer science degree but really want to learn all of the theory, because if it's not relevant for the jobs, then this is less of an incentive. But there will be people out there, but I guess there are if you have the reading list, then you'll be able to do it on your own. So in Cambridge, there's like the West Hub, and I think like there's a lot of the science buildings are based, like what kind of facilities are there for computer science students, and what is the West Hub like?
I guess for computer science students, there's 2 lecture halls, which is where all our lectures happen in second and third year. And then also there's a cafe inside of there and probably about 50 supervision rooms. And then also a lab, but not like a physics lab, and more like a computer lab with every seat has a monitor, a keyboard, mouse. And then also that's where you do your hardware practicals inside of that. And then I guess West Hub more generally has almost a lot of those sort of buildings for different subjects. But then you've got a few libraries and then quite a few cafes. And there's a cafe inside the computer science building, which is called the William Gates building. And there's just a few cafes around. And then also there's like a main place where you can get food at lunch, which is quite nice.
Nice. And how would you say, I mean, I've never been to the West Hub, so I generally don't know, but how would you say like the food and the libraries are compared to like college food and college libraries and study spaces, etc.?
I'd say the food's definitely very nice. I think it's a bit more expensive than college food, but I think it's still quite nice. And I guess the other thing is the convenience of it, because West Hub's about a 25-minute walk from college, and then also, I guess like a 10-minute cycle. So if you're there planning on staying there for the whole day, then it's, like the convenience is part of it. For the libraries, I haven't really been there too often. I spend a lot more time in the college library. And I think, to be honest, that's mainly just personal preference, but also I just really like the atmosphere inside the college library and also, just the whole setup there. So I guess I haven't really explored the West Hub one too much necessarily.
Yeah, the Trinity Library overlooks the river, right?
Yeah, so it overlooks the river. And then also, you have quite nice views and the lighting's quite nice. And it's never really too busy apart from exam term.
Yeah.
So it's like just quite a nice space to be in.
Nice. And you were saying that the food at the West Hub is slightly more expensive. Like how much would like a lunch cost at the West Hub and how much would it cost at Trinity Hall and college?
I think I've only been a few times to West Hub, but I think it's around £7, I guess. And then at college, you can probably get equivalent portion size to about £3.50, so about half the price. So I guess the college, like I said, is probably, it's definitely better value. But then, I think part of it is just paying for the convenience of where you are. The food in college is really good. It's like the kind of food you'd get like in a restaurant, but as you said, for £3.50. So next thing that we have here is for those who are like watching and about to start the application process, was wondering what the application process was like for you for applying for computer science, and when did you start thinking about it, etc.? I guess firstly in about June of year 12, I started actually thinking which course I wanted to study, and that's about when I realised it was computer science over maths or engineering. And then I guess over the summer, I was just preparing for the entrance test, which is the TMUA, as well as writing a personal statement. As the personal statement's due, I think start of like early October, and then the entrance test is normally just after that. So I guess they were the 2 main things you're preparing for. And then after the entrance test a bit later, you'll find out if you've been invited to an interview. And then I guess once I found out, then I started preparing for an interview in that sort of sense.
And how did you decide between, like, what made you choose computer science over maths or engineering?
I guess just a bit of a look into the course, and also sort of almost the places I wanted to go. Like I really wanted to go to Cambridge because it's a beautiful city. And then inside of that, I looked at the 3 courses on offer, and I realized computer science definitely aligned the most with my interests and also like future aspirations. So I guess, it wasn't necessarily too much of a tricky decision, at least for applying here.
Nice. And for students who are applying, no, in a given year, you can't apply to both Oxford and Cambridge. Students have to choose which one to apply to if they're interested in both. Did you ever consider Oxford?
To be honest, not really. I think firstly, I just preferred almost the admissions process in Cambridge. Like, I guess Cambridge traditionally interviews more people, and then also the entrance test spoke to me, or it seemed a bit more appealing.
Yeah.
And I guess that whole sort of process, not trying to kind of game the system, but I thought that would suit better to my strengths, as I thought an interview I'd do better in. So I didn't want the chance to not even get there.
Yeah.
And then I guess, also since when I looked at the rankings, at least I know computer science at Cambridge was, I thought, ranked higher. So I think, and also I think it was renowned as better, especially when I was speaking to teachers and other like students. So I guess, to be honest, the prestige almost was part of the driving factor.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know specific titles or standards, but in terms of vibe, Cambridge computer science Cambridge does seem to be where it's at to do computer science in the country for sure. And I think it's a really good point that you made about how looking at the application process and kind of seeing which one will get the best out of you. I think that's a really smart way to go about it. And there's also if you do the application process once and were to be unsuccessful, there's no reason to not make a second application if you think you've learned from the experiences the first time round and can make a strong application the second time, as each application is entirely independent. That's what I did. Didn't get in the first time, but got into Oxford the second time round. With the interviews process, what were your computer science interviews like? Did they ask you like qualitative questions like, why do you want to study computer science, or like, why Trinity Hall, assuming that you applied to Trinity Hall, or was it just problem solving?
So I guess they didn't ask anything about the why Trinity Hall. I guess also I didn't apply to Trinity Hall initially because I opted for a college that had an in-person interview, again, because I thought that would align to my strengths. But now Trinity Hall does in-person interviews. So to be honest, I would have applied here, having applied like 3 years in the future. Yeah. I guess in the interview, there's a bit about almost asking about your personal statement, but that was almost, or how I saw it, was more of an icebreaker and just a start of the conversation to get you talking about something you're passionate about and you're comfortable talking about. Because obviously it's quite a nerve-wracking process to have your first interview, just if they got straight into the questions. Yeah. But then I guess from there, a lot of the questions were just sort of A-level maths, probability questions, and then a bit about logic gates, which they always ask you before, that if you've learned or heard of the topic they're about to, I guess, quiz you on, because they don't mind if you don't know, because then they're happy to teach it. And I guess that's even part of the point, because it's meant to simulate a supervision. So them teaching you is quite a large part of what supervision is. And they're trying to figure out essentially if they would like to teach you. So I think that's quite a big part of the whole process. Yeah.
So, and what advice would you have for students who have like a computer science interview coming up and they know that they're going to be asked problem solving questions? Like, what are the best ways to approach that, especially when you're facing a question that you don't know the answer to?
I guess just generally, like any problem, I think you should always try and dictate almost every thought you have, or every relevant thought, definitely, because I think especially when you don't know the answer, they're very happy to guide you in the correct direction, but they don't know if you're even looking in the right direction unless you essentially like verbalize that. So I guess that's a big part of it. And then also, I think it's just practice, essentially. Like practice just speaking out loud to questions, even if it's with no one else. I think it's not really an idea that you've really done too much elsewhere. Essentially having questions asked to you out loud, and then you have to explain your whole thinking and the thought process and how to solve it for many minutes. I don't think that's really something that's too familiar. Yeah. And I guess making sure that when you go into that interview, that's not the first time you've essentially heard a question and then had to practice like explaining it to someone else.
Yeah, because I guess if you're quite used to doing like solving problems by writing down your answers, that's not the same as talking through your answers, etc.
Yeah, I think that's like definitely quite a bit different. I think I found that was quite a big gap, like between just the experience of obviously doing past papers and just writing down the answers, but then trying to verbalize and then also explain. But then also in the interviews, the interviewers often ask like why and get you to almost stretch your thinking, which is questions like obviously when you're writing it down, no one's asking you those.
Yeah. And were there any times in the interview that you might have to write things down?
For me, a lot of it was written down. I think there was a bit where I said my answers out loud, but almost always, I guess, almost advised that you write stuff down because otherwise they're quite long questions and it's just quite hard to keep that all in your head at the same time. And I guess as much as anything else, it's just another way to show the interviewer what you're thinking about and where you're currently at.
Yeah.
And especially, I guess, like online interviews as well, writing down is probably even more important just so that, yeah, they have something to see in terms of where you're at in the problem.
So would that be like they'd ask, let's say like a maths question, you might like show the kind of like answer that you think might be the answer, the steps, and that's going to be sometimes harder to talk about, so you can show it writing down.
Yeah, so I think at least how I did it was when I saw the question, obviously I'd also repeat it because I think that's always quite useful to not just rush into an answer.
Yeah.
But then going from there, I'd walk through what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And then whenever I think I've made a step that is worth writing down, then I'd write that down. Nice. So almost like I'm speaking it out loud, but then also writing down the relevant steps if it was an exam question to then get the marks there. And then, I guess it's just another way to verbalize or, convey what you're thinking and any additional stuff.
Yeah, because they don't know what's going on in your head. So if you don't write it down or talk, speak out loud, they have no idea how to guide you. So communicating effectively and clearly is definitely in your advantage if you've got an interview coming up. And lastly, for life after computer science, are there, sounds like a silly question to ask, but are there many like career opportunities for CompSci students once they finish their course?
I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities, and as I mentioned, there's inside of the course. I think by the end of this 3-year degree, or 4 if you choose to do the masters, you definitely find out essentially what your niche is inside, and you're able to specialize. And I do think, especially with the Cambridge degree in particular, what they teach you here isn't easily as replaceable by things like artificial intelligence because you're learning the actual theory behind it and not just programming itself. So I guess that's always quite useful. And also, I guess, just right here in Cambridge, there's also quite a lot of job opportunities and companies which come to things like career fairs, but then also just around about near West Hub and near that part of Cambridge. So I guess, there's a lot of career opportunities around here and just generally.
Nice. So that part where you were saying AI, you don't think AI would be able to replace the kind of intellect and skills that Cambridge CompSci graduates have? What kind of experience and skills is AI being able to kind of replace, and what kind of things is it not being able to replace at the moment?
I guess I don't think it's necessarily as much what it can't replace, but I think it's more it can replace a lot of the almost software engineering entry-level jobs where it's kind of just they've hired you just to write code and that's it. I think they're definitely a lot more replaceable because you're not necessarily pushing the boat out too much and that's not the most complex thing. And I guess Cambridge CompSci, I think, is just less replaceable than equivalent computer science degrees, more in the sense that because they teach you that theory, since the programming ability is becoming almost less and less useful, the thing that distinguishes this degree is the fact it has a lot more to offer than just that programming. So I guess it gives you more transferable skills. And also, I guess just generally, if you decide you don't want to work inside of the programming like sphere, you definitely have a lot more transferable skills from here to then pivot outside of that to something else you're interested in.
Yeah. And AI is something obviously that's kind of blown up in the past few years, and there's like more and more jobs involving AI from all different angles. How does does computer science have any like overlap with jobs revolving around AI and AI itself, and in what ways does like the computer science course overlap with jobs that might be involving AI?
Sure. So we have like a few courses that kind of overlap a bit. We have one called Machine Learning and Real World Development, and that kind of has some sort of basis of what the algorithms are going on underneath the sort of like LLMs. And then also we have data science this year, which again like helps you understand that. And then also we have just some newer modules, one called artificial intelligence, and then a lot more in third year, which allow you to specialize inside of that. But I guess a lot more than just it's teaching you essentially the underlying like, how the artificial intelligence, how the neural networks are working. And then I guess you have the jobs inside of that, which is writing that, developing that, and enhancing those sort of skills, which is just another branch inside of software engineering.
Mm. And for anyone who doesn't know, like, can you explain what what machine learning is and what LLMs are? And would I be right in thinking AI was kind of like created by people who like by computer scientists? So in order to get into it, computer science would be like a very good avenue.
Yeah, so I think, AI is definitely all founded inside of computer science. I guess you've got the idea all the way going back to Alan Turing. So it's been around for a long time. But then I guess a lot of the developments like LLMs, things like ChatGPT, that's, I guess, the most common example of an LLM, which just takes a lot of text and then predicts the next words based off of that. So a lot of that is founded inside of computer science. And I just guess more generally, any sort of artificial intelligence, a lot of these sort of neural networks have a lot of mathematical basis that is taught in these sort of degrees here.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a degree that had like a high employability potential, would I be right in thinking that computer science is like a really good course for at least that alone?
I think definitely, yeah. I know in the last couple of years, I think there might have been a drop, but I think that's mainly just due to overhiring, like pre-COVID and during COVID.
Yeah.
But I think, it should bounce back mostly. But I guess also, I think it's quite easy to get hired if it's something you're passionate in, because if you're passionate, it's quite easy to sink time into it and like show dedication. I think that's like definitely more in this course, the fact that, if you enjoy this course, you spend a lot of time in it, and then it's fairly easy to find a job. Like, it takes quite a while, but I think it's okay. It's okay to be done.
Yeah. So would I be right in thinking, say you want to, you're kind of career orientated and you want to get a job and you're thinking about which course, and you hear that computer science is highly employable, but it's kind of important to check whether you think you'd enjoy the course, because if you don't enjoy the course, then you're going to be less invested in it, spend less time in it, and that would actually have an impact on the employability later and just be a worse experience. Is that, would I be right in thinking that?
Yeah, I'd say that. And definitely if you have a job in mind before and you're trying to find the degree to like almost align with that, I think, you should definitely find something you're interested in, because as I said, it's most of the time, at least, it's quite accessible from different avenues.
Yeah.
So I think, a large part of it is if you pick computer science, but you didn't really enjoy the degree, then you'd almost get driven away quite a bit, because 3 years in something you necessarily might not enjoy the most, it's probably not the best for trying to make you enthusiastic about working in that sector.
Yes. But if you want to go into tech, and that's kind of like your aim in general, there might be avenues in that achieving that you'd enjoy more, and it's worth checking that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Will, for a really interesting podcast on computer science and what it's like studying computer science at Cambridge. A lot of students are really interested in applying for computer science, so hoping that they'll find this useful in the application process and knowing what computer science is like at Cambridge. And thank you, viewers, for watching. If there are any other podcasts that you'd like us to do, please put them in the comments. and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
That was good, yeah.